All right, I'm calling this the podcast to be named later. I don't know if it's actually going to get a name or not, but that's a working title for sure, and appreciate you coming on.
Yes. So this is like the podcast that might get traded for a bag of balls later. One of those situations.
Yeah, exactly, and a 40-second rounder.
Yes.
So wanted to talk to you about a number of things, right? And pardon my take, presented by the Cash App.
See it? Yeah, we're in the studio.
Co-branding.
Yes.
Obviously, that is the number one sports podcast. A lot of people identify with that. Shout out to Pardon My Take for all of its success. But I wanted to go back and kind of figure out how you got to build to that, because I know it's not just an overnight success. And wanted to go back to your fond days at Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what that was like in Madison.
Yeah. So, you spent time on a Big Ten campus with Michigan, and Wisconsin is very similar. I think I'd like to think that Wisconsin is a little more fun than all the other Big Ten schools, but great place to go. Awesome school. Awesome. It's so big, and Madison, if you've been to Madison once, you fall in love with it. But I was the classic quintessential kid who went to school, and what I studied, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I studied history and political science. I was good. I was a good student. I studied hard, got good grades. But the moment I graduated, I basically was saying to myself, well, maybe I'll go to law school in a few years, or maybe I'll go to business school, or who the hell knows what I'm going to do. And it was very weird, because it was also, so I graduated in 2007, and this is right before everything kind of falls apart in the world. And my uncle got me a job working through a connection, and I'm definitely someone who will admit that sometimes who you know and sometimes the connections will always help. Our relationship started through
no doubt
connections of other people that we then got linked up.
Sam Schwartzstein, Scott Turner.
Yeah, shout out all those
Tom
guys.
Tom Crean, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we can get into this because I'm a big believer in connecting with people and staying connected with people. But so my uncle was able to help me get a start working in real estate in Chicago for a home developer. So I was getting paid nothing. Like, I think my starting salary was $27,000 a year.
U.S.?
Yes, U.S. I remember, actually. So I started in 2007. The market goes to crap. Everything falls apart. And they looked around the whole company, and they're like, they basically fired half the company. And it's not a big company. It was like probably 35, 40 people. And they kept me because I was so cheap. Yep. They're like, this guy's getting nothing, so we can just give him a bunch of different jobs. And I think the very first lesson I learned was that basically making myself, someone that can't be cast aside and can't be thrown away because I do so many different things is the key to success. And by that I mean I came in as trying to figure out what real estate development was, and within a year I was doing property management and helping with rentals and getting my license to just chip in with that, basically trying to make myself as like a Swiss Army knife, because the market was so bad and everything had gotten so terrible that I knew that the only way to stick was to do like 6 people's jobs at once. Do
you have people like that around here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think actually the most successful people are like that. Like Hank is a perfect example. And some people will get mad because I always pump up Hank because he's my guy. And
everybody's got a guy, though.
Yeah, everyone's got a guy. You got to have the guy, and when you have a guy, you always sing his praises.
And you go back to the well,
right?
Time after time.
And it's one. You have those relationships where you're like, this guy I trust no matter what with everything I do, and that's Hank. But he started at Barstool, and he didn't even know how to do the things that he put on his resume, which I wouldn't recommend that, to lie on your resume. But he became video guy, podcast producer. Now he produces stool scenes. He does like on-air stuff. He's in videos, part of the like actual audio of Pardon My Take. So doing a bunch of different things makes it so people can't get rid of you.
So you were at the real estate agency, your development firm,
yeah,
and you're there for a year, 2 years. Was it something that you could see yourself doing long term?
The joke I make is that I am the worst real estate professional of all time because I got into it in 2007, 6 months before the market crashed in historic fashion. And I got out of it in 2012 when it was just bouncing back. So my real estate career was essentially the worst 5-6 years of like the U.S. real estate market. But I did have that point right around 26, 27 where I was like, I think this is a career. I could see myself doing okay. I wasn't making big money, but I had started, climbing up a little bit and starting to do some fun things, flipping houses, all that kind of stuff. But there was always that nagging part of me where I was like, I think there's something else I wanted. It was a job. It wasn't something that I was so passionate about that I wanted to get to work every day and was excited and fired up to get involved. So I think that hitting that age and having that kind of revelation was big for me, being like, yeah, I could do it forever, but would I love it? Probably not. So is there something else out there?
Yeah, and a lot of people get to that point, right, where they're figuring out, okay, is this for me? And so what was the step? What was the moment? What was the thought process? How did it all evolve to take you from that to what you did next?
Yeah, so they started Barstool Chicago. So I started as writing like funny emails to my friends and
funny like how?
I like they would just like a clown. Goodfellas. No, but like, I would write it would start as I would remember a random player from from Wisconsin history or something from like when we all were in college together, or remember a random person, and I would send an email on Fridays and my friends would like it, and it was like, okay, maybe this is something that's going on. And I, toiled around with all that stuff. And then they started Barstool Chicago. I hit up Dave and I asked him if I could cover, I wasn't going to be the guy, but I asked him if I could cover the Cubs and, write a little on the side. So there was probably about a 9-month span where I was doing both. I was still working in real estate and also blogging a little. And those 9 months, when you're doing both, you can feel it. Okay, the one thing one thing I wake up and I'm passionate about, and the other thing is just kind of a paycheck.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't getting paid to blog, but I was enjoying the heck out of it. So that kind of moment made me realize, like, all right, this is really what I want to do. And I think Barstool got to a different point where they had a little more financial stability, where it became less of a risk to take that jump. It was still a risk because it was 7 people. And we still got paid, I think, through just personal checks from Dave. So it was still a risk, but it was also one of those moments where it's like, okay, I'm 27. I don't have a family. I could take this risk. And I remember getting the advice from someone, a close friend, being like, listen, make your mistakes early, because a lot of times you feel like there's so much pressure on you in your 20s, but you're still very, very young career-wise. And if you make a mistake or you go to a place that doesn't work out, it's okay, because you can find a way to restart as long as you do it early enough where it's not like, hey, I'm 40 and I'm going to decide to start be a blogger.
Well, and you keep those relationships tight, right, in the context that you're talking about. So you had a safety net proverbially, but not like literally, or obviously unless you're a clown in a circus. Right.
No, I left. It's a good point, though, because I left on good terms. I actually remember walking into my boss's office to tell him that I was going to leave. And I was like, can I talk to you for a sec privately? And he said to me, either you stole money for me or you found something you're passionate about and you're leaving us. And I was like, well, I didn't steal money from you. So he's like, well, I'm happy for you, whatever you found, because I want you to be happy. So leaving on good terms and not burning bridges and being friendly with those people still is definitely a good life lesson. Like, hey, things will always come around again. You know what I mean? You'll always have people that you get in contact with you maybe never thought you'd come across again. That will pop up again. So having those relationships and keeping them intact is definitely a huge thing.
The best people that I've met at networking and keeping relationships solid and connected have achieved tons of success.
Right.
And they just it seems like, you'd say it's luck, but then, the harder you work, the more luck you have, and the stronger your relationships are, and the better those ties are, right? It manifests itself beautifully.
Right. It's so true.
So you're at the real estate agency firm company and you're doing the blogging on the side. How many hours a week was that for those 9 months?
It was probably, I don't know. I mean, it would depend on what was going on. Given, it slowly ramped up. Eventually, I was probably working. My real estate job was like 50 to 60 hours a week, and then blogging was another like 10, 15, and then some on the weekends as well. I think there's definitely, looking back on it, there's a lesson to be had with being in your 20s and having that like energy that you don't realize until you lose it. You know what I mean? You don't realize that you've lost it until you've lost it. But that energy of, hey, I can sleep 6 hours a night and work 70, 80 hours a week and I'll be fine. There's that feeling that you just have that in you. And I think being able to capture that and take advantage of it is pretty crucial.
Yeah, and it's not to say that it necessarily departs everyone at the same age, right? So if you recognize it, if you still have it, like definitely take advantage of it. So you start the job at Barstool, and then what was that grind like?
So I started. So I did the 9 months where I was doing it part time, and then I finally came full time. Decided to make the switch, and back then, so it's 2012. The way we were set up was we had Boston, New York, Chicago. I think we had Philly, and that was it. So, and Barstool U. So it was essentially like 7 or 8 guys total in the whole company. We were all separate. We basically, only interaction you'd have is through, G-Chat, talking to your colleagues. Like, I would sit at home. I would wake up in the morning because I'm in the, Central Time. I'm already an hour behind everyone else, so I'd wake up a little earlier. I would sit at my desk around 7:30 in the morning. I would start blogging, and I would have a different blog up every 40 minutes from 7:30 in the morning, basically, till like 5 at night. And at 5 at night, I would maybe take an hour to take my dog out, decompress. And then as soon as games start, I'm back on the couch being, interacting, being always plugged in. And that was the big thing that I think set me apart, or maybe not set me apart, but the big thing that was, huge for our early success is always being on. Because people would watch a sport and they're on Twitter and they want to interact and they want to see a blog about it and they want to have an instant reaction, and knowing that no matter what happens, you'll have my thoughts about it within like 10 minutes. And having that, like, I'm always plugged in, I'm always locked in, don't have much of a social life, but that's okay because I enjoy what I do and it's for a bigger goal.
I feel like that's still an element of what you do on Twitter.
Yeah.
Right? Like weighing in, immediacy.
Correct.
Do you ask that of people here at Barstool, the bloggers? Like, just crank it out every 40 minutes, like aspire to reach your standard?
No, actually, it's interesting. The evolution of Barstool has been very interesting to watch, just from, I would assume from the outsider, but from the insider as well, myself, because what we did to start is completely different than what we expect from people now. And I think that's both a good and a bad thing, because when I started and it was only 7 of us, you had no excuse for missing something, but you also had no backup. So if something happened in a Cubs game, there's no one else who's going to talk about it. I have to talk about it. So having that feeling like it's me, it's on me, I have to be on all the time, kind of trains your brain to always be locked in. Whereas now there's so many people that there's a little bit of an element of where people can say, oh, well, someone else has it and someone else got it, so I can take a night off. So, which isn't a bad thing, because I think once you get to a bigger company, you go from 7 people to 150, you can never ask the additional 143 people to be as invested as the first 7. It's I think that you can see that in any company. To add people, when you get added later, the life-work balance is always going to be a little bit better than the early people.
Yeah, the fundraising company I'm at right now, like, great people started it, right? Former Washington State quarterback, CEO, and they just hustled and grinded and flew everywhere and did everything and wore 75 different hats. And now, there's more order. We've got C-suite executives and everything. But you still try and keep that grind and that hustle, and you can spot who has it, and then that's a keynote for success. I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. There. Once you start adding more people, some people are going to be 9-to-5ers, and I think that's totally okay. once you realize that it's just never going to be the same as it was when there were 8 of us and it was like everyone in the foxhole together.
But there are some people probably like Elon Musk, maybe, and others that think everyone should be working 16 hours a day on that.
Which is crazy to me, because I just think, honestly, it's really how you're wired. And I think I am wired in a certain way. Hank actually makes fun of me. I'm like, when I complete something, when I put out something, I'll probably bask in it for about 30 minutes. And then I'm like, all right, what's next? When we went and interviewed Coach Harbaugh, that was one of our biggest interviews to that date for Pardon My Take. I think maybe we were 20 minutes down the road where I was like, all right, what's next on the schedule? Because it's just this feeling of it's never enough. And I don't think everyone has it. And that's okay. I think that's me having that is probably helped me a lot. It's also probably made me a little bit crazy and not a normal like social life and all that stuff. But it is. I think some people are wired that way, and they'll succeed in a different trajectory.
Did I tell you that milk was expired?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, which is fine because we got the interview.
Sure.
So it was perfect.
Some of the other Barstool cities didn't take off, maybe like yours did, right? Certainly like Boston has. Is it fair to say that your work ethic maybe allowed Chicago to succeed at a better rate?
Yeah, I don't know if it was my work ethic, because I think we had a bunch of guys who started who were all really hard workers. I just think that maybe there's a little bit of that. There's also a little bit, to be totally honest with you, is if the teams winning. Yeah, it really does. Like the Blackhawks winning was big for me, and being with the team in 2000, they won in 2010, but being with the team in 2013 and in 2015 kind of gives you a little something. Having Jay Cutler be an early fan and wearing shirts at press conferences, those little things. So I wouldn't say that I worked harder than anyone. I mean, maybe I did, but I would say that like it's almost like a perfect storm of things that happened to get us to where we were.
And you got to ride the championship coattails a little bit for the Blackhawks, right?
Yeah.
How was that?
It was unreal. I mean, I still have to pinch myself, because the one thing that happens with internet time is a week feels like a year. Yeah. So when I'm talking about 2013 and 2015, it feels like 40 years ago. But the Patrick Sharp, who is a fan and a friend, was so nice to me and let me enjoy it with the team at a level that I don't think really many people get to do. And I still have to pinch myself and be like, I can't believe I was like allowed to party with those guys, go on Wrigley Field, all these things that were just once in a lifetime moments. And not only were they once in a lifetime moments, but they helped my career in a big way.
Did you drink out of the Stanley Cup?
Oh, many times.
Nice.
Many times.
Nice.
Yes, many times.
I was like an honorary University of San Diego baseball team member, so I got to play against Chris Bryant in an alumni game.
Oh, he probably kicked your ass.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if you have to bleep that. We'll bleep that.
No, we don't have to. We don't have to bleep it, but definitely, I was on the. I got a nice K in the box score.
Yes,
so
yes,
that was good.
Yes.
So Barstool starts ramping, and things are getting better. I have a soft spot in my heart for Barstool Van Talk.
Okay.
Really enjoyed the episode.
Yes, the one episode.
Yeah, the one episode. And there are some other really great series that I looked up that got canceled after one episode. like Heil Honey, I'm Home, which is an Adolf Hitler-esque person living next to Jews in a neighborhood trying to figure that out. There was another one guy who was trying to heal people through mesmerizing and just different tactics that certainly weren't very effective.
Right.
Hypnosis.
Right.
So one show, Barstool Van Talk, 94% though on Google, like overwhelmingly, nicely approved and acclaimed. I would like to say that my favorite part of it was in studio doing the Chris Berman.
Yes.
I mean, that was
a thrill.
I was crying laughing.
Yes.
I mean, it was terrific.
People were mad because their dogs started barking when they heard us whooping and doing all the Chris Berman noises.
I'm sure they got over it.
Yeah,
no doubt. So undoubtedly you had big plans for that.
Yeah.
Right. And you're focused on that, and you're the type of guy who, after you do something, 30 minutes later, you're like, okay, like, what are we doing next? Mm-hmm. Did you have that after you found out that Barstool Van Talk was no more?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely very disappointing, because we had ramped up, and I remember so vividly. I remember the first show came on a Tuesday, and then it got canceled the next Monday. I remember the Wednesday after the first show, walking out of my apartment at like 10 a.m. and being like, I have a TV show. This is insane. And kind of having that one moment that I hadn't had because it had just aired the night before, and having that one moment where I was like, this is crazy. I'm on TV. This is nuts. And I remember that so vividly, and then having that taken away, it definitely hurt. It also taught me so many lessons about what I want and where I want to be in 5-10 years, because that situation, the way it unfolded, I don't even know who to blame. I think there was a lot of weird things that were at play, but more than anything, especially in today's media, I don't ever want to be in a spot where my fate can be decided by other people, and whether it be people who are doing it in like malicious ways behind my back, or bureaucratic red tape, or it's inter-office politics, whatever it may be. I realize that being in that situation where I can have like decisions made on my behalf is just it's like a really bad feeling to be in.
It's shitty.
It's shitty. I'm trying not to swear, but it's shitty. And I like the media landscape and how it is today. You don't need to do 10 years ago, you did need to have an ESPN show. You did need to have these things. You had to have a radio show during the drive time slot. I don't think you need it that same way. So learning that, and learning that, yeah, we got our TV show canceled, but, we woke up the next day and we still have the #1 sports podcast. It was a good feeling of like, you know what? We need to just change like where our priorities are, and maybe stop looking to all these grandiose ideas that might not actually fit. Because I actually really do think a lot of I hate the saying like things happen for a reason. I think it's bullshit for 99.9%. Now I'm going to say it, but I think that show would have been bad for us overall, because I think we would have had to change what we do in our core and our essence in such a way that I don't think it would have worked long term.
So you got a cease and desist for the Pardon My Take logo.
Yes.
and the creation of that podcast, and then you had the ESPN show cut off. George Bush said so eloquently, "Fool me once, shame on.
Yes.
Shame on you. Fool me twice, can't get fooled again."
Yes.
How many more times are you going to go back to the ESPN well?
Well, what's funny is I actually do a radio hit with my friends in Chicago, Waddle and Sylvie, who do a great show.
Uh-huh.
I do a 20-minute radio hit with them every Thursday. It's so much fun. So the way I explain it, because every now and then I'll still get people when I tweet out that I'm going on, they'll be like, how could you do this to the ESPN? It's the same thing I'll say over and over. Before I went, we got canceled by ESPN, I had close friends that worked at ESPN, and just because I got canceled at ESPN doesn't mean those close friends aren't close friends still.
Yeah.
I know some people who might have stabbed me in the back, and I'll never forget that, and not like in a malicious way. Like I just won't forget. Like, don't get in a spot where people can do that to you. But in terms of people I was friends with and people I know who always had my back, that hasn't really changed. And so like Waddle and Sylvie are those type of guys. I knew them before. I was friends with them before it. And so afterwards, it's like, why wouldn't I keep doing it? Just because they're ESPN? That makes no sense. I'm a big believer in personal relationships over like, you work there, I can't be friends with you. You work for a competitor, I can't talk to you. No, like if I like you and we have a relationship, we have a relationship, because that's what human beings do.
So your personal relationships, the way that you handle them, great communication, phone call, text message, show up, invest in them. What does that look like for you, I guess?
Yeah, I would say...
Because it's tough. You've got to be judicious with how you spend your time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I would say... and it's really funny because I remember when I was a kid, my dad used to always like talk to strangers and stuff, and I'd be like, this is so weird. He's such a weirdo. But then I realized like I kind of got some of that in me where he passed that along of, being able to communicate with people and talk to people and network with people. But, it's something I think I learned once we started doing Pardon My Take and we started, reaching out to guests and getting more people and getting more connections. I didn't realize I had that trait in me to the level I do, but I really do take pride in connecting with people, staying connected with people, and having relationships, like our relationship is literally the perfect test case. I think you hated me when we first talked.
Not true.
You hated me when we
Negative.
first talked. So
Fake
I'll tell
news.
the story.
Fake news.
We were on Grit Week in 2017, I want to say. Wanted to go. We were in the Midwest. We wanted to get Jim Harbaugh so badly. I reached out to everyone I knew, Sam Schwartzstein, other people that I knew that were connected even loosely to the Michigan program. I think I, at one point, was texting like 8 people in your office all at once. And I finally got to your number. I was badgering you nonstop. We finally got it set up. And I told you we need just 20 to 30 minutes. And then I remember this vividly. Do you remember this? We did like 50 minutes. And when I came out, you're like, hey, when you say 20 to 30 minutes, like, and then you do 50, was that like on purpose? And I was like, no, honestly, I didn't mean to do that. It was not that way. We just honestly, when there's good conversation going, it's really hard to stop it. So that was why I thought you hated me, because I thought you thought like I pulled, the wool over your eyes on that one.
You have to understand that there are people who do that, and
Right.
so many people had done that. And so I, just as like a human experience thought for me, I was like, okay, well, you guys are at a different level with your podcast. Like when you say 20 or 30 minutes, do you mean 20 or 30 minutes? Because in so many sales roles, it's like, sir, can I just get a minute of your time?
Right.
And then it turns into a ton. And I know how he can be when he enjoys something. Coach Harbaugh will go long on it, right? And so part of that was me understanding and managing it, and it all worked out.
It did work out, but it is true. I probably, when I say 20 to 30 minutes, I probably mean 30 to 40. But when you put the 2 in front of it, it's like selling a car at $19.99. Yeah, right. But so after that, we stayed in touch. We stayed in text message touch. We I went on Coach Harbaugh's show
Twice.
Yeah, twice. And I
Thank
think
you.
we talk every couple months, and then when you're in New York City, you let me know. And so I think I have a ton of those little relationships all around the country where it's people that we maybe haven't like spent a week in Cabo together, but I feel like I know you because we stay in somewhat regular contact. And and then I think I've passed along names to you, you've passed along names to me, so it's just this world of networking and staying in touch with people. I always say the biggest thing that the advice I give is that always keep in touch with someone when you don't need something from them.
Oh yeah,
because that's the biggest thing. When you get a text saying, hey, I want this from you, and you get it once a year, people are like, what the fuck? Why are you texting me right now? JJ Watt's a perfect example. We had JJ Watt on the show the first time. Didn't go great. It was fine. I stayed in contact.
Whose fault? His or yours?
I think it was both of ours.
Okay.
The sound wasn't great. It just wasn't the best. It was also overhyped, so that part was our fault. I stayed in touch with him. I text him, when the Badgers are, win a big game, or he has whatever it may be. Anything that's topical that I know we both are, thinking, I'll shoot him a text, or he'll even shoot me a text. And that relationship over a year and a half of texting kind of grew a little bit. And then the second time he comes on, it was an unbelievable interview because he just feels so much more comfortable, and he feels like he knows me to a different level. And so that little stuff where it's like, I'll text after a Badgers game instead of saying, hey, JJ, I want you on the show. It just makes all the difference in the world.
No, and you've been great for me. I mean, you tour around, however you can help, connecting people. I was trying to help Dave Solfero with Barstool Idol, right? And so
it didn't go well.
Yeah,
that's okay.
It happens. But and we've tried to link up maybe at games or whatever, and all of that is awesome, and I've appreciated every bit of that. And so hopefully it'll continue to be mutually beneficial.
Yes.
I would be remiss if I don't mention PFT.
Yes.
And working alongside him.
Yes.
How did that relationship come to be, and how strong is it currently?
So it started as, funny enough, we both got accused of stealing each other's jokes online because we have a lot of parallel thoughts
By multiple people.
Yeah, they'd be like, "Hey, he said that," or "He said that."
And so is somebody's like a big cat guy, and somebody else is a
right,
PFT guy, right?
And this is early internet, so we didn't have a ton of followers, either of us. And so then we followed each other, and we first met up when he was in Chicago. We grabbed a beer. Funny enough, we were drinking a beer, and we were like just shooting the shit. And I think we like almost simultaneously said it would be funny if we accused Cal Ripken Jr. of doing steroids because he's the only guy in the steroid era who never got accused of it. Like just a stupid idea that's not true, but we would just almost said it at the same exact time. And we're like, okay, this is kind of random that we are like this lockstep with our thoughts. Kept that relationship alive. We hung out at the Super Bowls. And then when Chernin bought us and we opened up, the hiring and had money to hire people in different roles, I kind of pitched him on it and he met with Dave. And it's like, look, let's do a podcast together. I think it will be big. Never thinking that it would be as big as it has become.
Yeah.
But he's so much fun to work with because he's just always thinking of new things. And I think we have a great chemistry in how our brains work and kind of a yin and a yang to a lot of what we do. And it's crazy to think how neither of our careers would be anywhere near what they are right now without each other and pardon my take.
And he is witty and really clever, exceedingly that way. And you can really drive the conversation and add your own take. I think it's an awesome mix of the two of you, right? I'm sure you guys get that all the time.
Yeah, his one-liners are things I could never think of. I think I add like the relatability factor, and I think when you put it together, it's what makes the show go.
No doubt. Also, the Corp is that an example of the relationships?
Yes.
I mean, that's a pretty eclectic power group of people.
Yeah, that's a big time example of relationships. So I mean, I kind of stalked Alex Rodriguez on the internet.
Kind of stalked?
Yeah, kind of
Can't
stalked
be like
him.
halfway pregnant. Like
okay, I stalked him
all
online.
right.
I said I worked for his company even though I didn't.
Uh-huh.
And then
no lying on your resume. Whatever happened to that? Like Hank, right? I mean,
no, I did. I mean, I was ready to go. If he wanted me,
Okay.
I was working for him. I wasn't catching a paycheck technically, but I was doing work in name of the Corp.
Yes.
And then, through other connections that I had made through the years, I got connected to him, and then it's kind of been
and
the
that's
rest is
detailed
history.
in that episode.
Yeah,
right, with Alex.
Right, it's other people. It wasn't like a one-to-one A-Rod slid into my DMs. It was, Ron Berkowitz and other people behind the scenes that were able to connect us to that level. Ron Berkowitz and Brian Axelrod, those were the two guys that basically got me connected to A-Rod, and it was step-by-step, slowly doing a meeting, getting lunch with him, and then eventually getting to that point.
Yeah. The Gary V interview was kind of all over the place. He's high energy.
Big time.
Yeah, there were a couple things that he just glossed over that you were kind of like making funny inferences or whatever.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that episode too.
Yes.
So, but that was just a culmination of what you figured, hey, this is a really great group of people. You'll take a different tact, and that you were motivated to do that on your own, and you had the license to do that, and it just came to fruition that way.
Yeah, I mean, the beautiful thing about working at Barstool is that I have freedom over everything I do. I've never been told no to anything, and I don't think you could find another person in sports media who's had that type of career by being able to just be like, all right, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. No one says a word. Even the Grit Week, when we first interviewed Coach Harbaugh, that started by just us getting in a van. And we didn't even tell anyone. We're just going to go and drive around and get some interviews. So, yeah, the A-Rod thing, obviously Erica and Dave were very helpful, but they never have told me that's a bad idea.
And obviously really creative and forward-thinking and ambitious that way, but also with that comes a sense of self-awareness and then also a gratitude, right? I mean, like, I feel like you don't take it for granted. Like, you work hard. I mean, it's a very fine balance to navigate. I mean, is it fair to say that what you've done and what you've accomplished is a byproduct of maintaining the relationships, being grateful, being gracious, having some luck and happenstance, and kind of all blended together?
Yeah, and really to that point, knowing that the career I have, it won't last forever. It's kind of similar to I kind of liken it to an athlete's career that obviously you can be in sports media in your 40s and 50s, so it's a little different than playing in the NFL. But where it's the same is there is a portion of my career that will be my peak, and
you haven't peaked yet.
I don't know if I peaked yet, and I hope I haven't, but And then there will be a, kind of second chapter, if you will. And it won't last forever. So having, I think, a little bit of humbleness, knowing that tomorrow you can wake up and people can just decide they don't like you anymore. I mean, that could happen. So knowing that in the back of my head, I think helps drive me a little bit, where I just don't really take it for granted and know, the people who've supported me. And I'm talking about the fans, obviously family and everything and friends, but like the fans who have supported me and who've kind of accumulated over the years, I don't take that for granted at all.
No, and I think your outlook is so different than the major networks because those people are placed there. And
yes.
I think they feel like they landed on third base and they hit a triple
right.
when they're really kind of just pinch runners.
Right.
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 And so you've done the heavy lifting and then you've built to it. And so I think that allows you to be at a unique place with tons of gratitude.
Right. And it's also to that point is that if you look at the evolution of Barstool and how it's gone, and although it feels very fast, it's kind of slow in the respect that, 7 years ago, I'd walk down the street, no one would say anything. Then maybe one person, then two people. So when you think about people who get thrust in the limelight, it happens very fast. It's been a slow burn. So it's never felt like my life has drastically changed. You know what I mean? It's been such a gradual buildup that I haven't had that moment where I'm like, I'm famous. No, I'm not. I don't feel that way. And I really don't believe that. I mean, yeah, on the internet maybe and in podcasting, but having it be so gradual, I think, has been huge to keeping that, your feet in the ground, knowing that all these people were built up through hard work over time. It wasn't just I had a hit record or I got drafted. You know what I mean? And now I'm a big deal. So
we might occasionally find you inside a Bagel Boss talking to random people maybe about your height.
Exactly. Height is a taboo subject on Pardon My Take. I am all of 6'2.5".
Yeah.
Tallest member on the show.
Congratulations.
Not to brag.
Yeah.
But
No.
Yes.
Humble brag.
Always been that tall.
I'm 5'10". Just a quick.
So that means you're 5'9".
No. Well,
this is every guy who's if you're 6 feet, you're 6 feet. Anything under, you're giving yourself an extra inch.
Pro day, shoes off. I'm getting measured.
Yeah.
Flat on the ground.
You stretch the morning.
I lengthened myself. Right. I tried to elongate as much as I could, and I've got a 65-year-old New York Giants scout named Jerry Shea who just had just a little bit too much of my shit. So I'm, he's ready to put a triangle in above my head. He socks me in the stomach and then jams the triangle over my head and says 5'9" and 7/8".
There you go.
I go to the San Diego State Pro Day 2 days later. A younger guy measures me 5'10" and an eighth. So you take the average, I get to 5'10".
Okay, all right, I'll give you 5'10".
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking through some of the secret sauce, right? What's made you successful, and the relationship that you and I have, I really appreciate.
Yes.
So thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's been fun. I never get to really do these things, so I loved it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.